we're going to start with news that I think was kind of broken and confirmed when you were away in August.
Yeah.
That Mauricio Pochettino is the new U.S. men's national team coach. It hasn't been announced yet because lawyers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's a matter of time, yeah.
Well, we think our information is that by the time you listen to us, it's going to be official. So let's talk about this. I'm also going to get into a little bit, but maybe later in the podcast part, about what does it mean that people like Pochettino, experienced managers, move on to national team jobs, and we see so many younger managers at a lot of big clubs very, very quickly, from Company to Maresca. You could go back a couple of years to Arteta as well. First of all, for the US, is he the right choice moving to a foreign coach?
I think he's a great signing. He's a great coup because of the name, because of who he is, because of the experience that he had. I think there might be, we've said that international football is very different to club football, which is true. But I think for someone like him, who seems a bit more pragmatic now than maybe when he started, that transition could be easier from club level to international level, and working with the US roster, those young players, with the World Cup coming in 2 years' time, I think he could be the right guy. I think he's evolved in the way that his teams are playing, and we saw what happened in Paris and in Chelsea, where there were difficult times at times for him. So I think he would have learned a lot from that. And yeah, I think the US men's national team would benefit from having somebody like him with the intensity, with the man managing skills that he has to a certain extent. So for me, it's a great signing.
I think there's another aspect. Obviously, he's a native Spanish speaker as well. I think that also comes into it. I know everybody, most of the recent coaches spoke some Spanish. I mean, Greg Berhalter certainly did. But obviously, it's completely different when you have him, albeit with a bit of an Argentine lilt.
Yeah.
Being able to speak directly to the U.S. sort of fans for whom Spanish is their first language.
Yeah.
It just
absolutely
creates a different dimension there. For me, when I look at the Pochettino negatives in the past, they've generally been two things. One is he surrounds himself with people who are very much aligned with him, right? With yes men in his staff. That's been the knock against him, right? And he makes a joke, yes, boss, yes, ha, ha, ha. Somebody comes with an idea from the outside, it becomes a bad idea until he or one of his staff think of it first. That's been a knock. Fair or not fair, that's been a knock against him. I think that's less of an issue here.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the U.S. men's national team no doubt has some analytics nerds and whatever, but he's got to realize all these players, MLS, left, right, and center, I need to decide who I want to pick, to decide how I want to run things. I'm going to need help beyond my staff.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty evident. The other knock is once he enjoys a bit of success, he gets a little bit grabby, and certainly at clubs, right? We saw that. We saw that at Chelsea. We saw that at Spurs. We saw that, you may contradict me, but I think we saw that a little bit at Paris Saint-Germain in the sense like, look, I've had some success. Now, no, I don't want to sign that player. Let's get that player. Let's extend his contract. He gets Sir Alexitis without being Sir Alex, right? That's not an issue with the national team.
No.
Because you're not signing any players.
No, absolutely not. And that's why I think he's transitioning from club level to international level with the US could work for that. I think he's more pragmatic, like I said earlier. It was interesting because Caicedo, once Poch had left Chelsea, complained a bit that the work they did was a lot physical. It was a lot about the intensity and running a lot, not so much tactical, which I think is true, especially compared to Brighton and theyre for Caicedo's case, certainly for his case. Again, international level, there's obviously...
I don't think he worked much with theyre at Brighton.
Or Potter, before. But the international level, there is obviously a tactical element to it, naturally, like for every football team, whatever level. But there's also, obviously, because you don't have much time to work with your players, it's very different to a club level where if you want, you can do tactical stuff on the board every single day for hours and hours and hours and hours. So again, to go back to Poch's case, I don't think that will be an issue here either.
You got a limited amount of time. You got to make it count. You got to get your ideas across quickly. We're going to break this down a little bit further on Gab and Juls podcast, and also talk a little bit about why so many clubs are kind of seemingly turning their back on experienced big name managers and rolling the dice with younger ones?
I think Poch will do well, and I know he's not perfect, and I know the Chelsea time and the PSG time in the end were maybe more or less successful than maybe we thought it might be. Maybe, but I think this is a good signing. Do you? And obviously, there's the World Cup coming up, and which I would think is a bigger appeal for Poch to have accepted the job. Do you think he will do well? Do you think he has enough time now in 2 years to get things ready for what is still a young squad? And we can debate of the talent of the squad. There is a lot of talent in certain positions, not so much in others. What do you think he will do?
So, a couple of things on that one. If we say do well, define success, right? In some ways, we're talking quarterfinals.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. That should be the objective.
Right, but you look at it and you say, okay, well, this team's reached the round of 16 a billion different times. That's kind of been the hurdles, the quarterfinal, semifinal, whatever. It seems to me like you're at home in a World Cup. Is that really an ambitious goal? Is this why I'm paying Poch? Could I not get any old American to do that? Could Jesse Marsh not do that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's an unfair way to look at it. I think his impact is to go beyond simply what results you get in the tournament, because that could also come down to the draw. It could come down to many different things. And it comes down to talent and player availability. When we talk about, I'll just throw something out to you, right? Who is very good and has been very good and productive on the pitch and is a U.S. player in the last 12 months? I would argue, I'll go first. Pulisic, that's the obvious one.
Yeah.
You could make a case for Anthony Robinson.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess so.
I'm talking club level.
Yeah.
Okay, and then.
Yeah, then it's difficult.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I know some of our colleagues in the US were going on
but
about Weston McKennie. Oh, Weston, he played the third most minutes for Juve. Yeah, it's a Juve team that wasn't spending anything. Doing well.
Same for Yunus Musa. He's not really a starter enough for Milan to...
Musa's not there yet. Tyler Adams, I have no idea if he's injured again. I'm assuming he is, right? Because he usually is. Serginho Dest, career went nowhere. Matt Turner, a reserve. Maybe there's other keepers who can step up. I don't know. Is the answer.
Of course. Joe Reyna is obviously, I think, the prime example of all of this.
Gio Reyna, because he's the value added, right? He with Pulisic are the guys who, in theory, in practice, have this incredible ability. I kind of feel like you've got 2 years to play consistently, harness that. And the reason it's important for these guys to play consistency is that if you can play consistently at a high level, you also bring with you experience, leadership, all these things that and you can learn by playing at a high level for an extended period of time at a Champions League club. And I think the reality is McKennie, you can argue, has done that a little bit, and Pulisic has done that. I might be forgetting somebody, not too many others.
You think that Tim Weah at Juve in the Champions League with Thiago Motta, if he's really a starter, can improve massively? I think
that's a big if. That's another one, right?
Same with Balogun and Monaco in the Champions League as well. So all that experience that you're mentioning, they can get that between now and the World Cup, and they will obviously be 2 years older as well. I'm hoping that Tanner Tessman in France at Lyon, if he does play and get that starting place.
First John Textor reference of the show.
Yeah,
not the last one.
Could really improve too. So I think there's huge potential that maybe just need to be unlocked a little bit.
I don't know if I would use the word huge potential. There is potential.
There is.
There
but considering
potential.
the World Cup is at home for them, that becomes huge potential, because if you develop that potential, plus the home crowd, plus the support, being in your own country, all of that can be a very good World Cup. It should be a very good World Cup.
I think the tools are there, but I think really the impact for him is going to be, the way he's going to be judged is going to be more broadly, more culturally. Can he put the sport on the map in the U.S. in a more mainstream way and a more lasting way, right? Because we know they all tune in when there's the World Cup, men's or women's and stuff like that. But then people lose sight of these guys. I feel like, I could be wrong on this, I'm not an expert, but I feel for like sort of the non-football fan in the U.S., they will tune in for the World Cup the way they tune in for the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Watch it, I get really into it, and then look, NFL training camps are starting, right? That I think is the challenge for that great leap forward.
Yeah.
It's not like Pochettino to solve it for
fair.
himself,
Yeah.
but it is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And the way he talks about the U.S. men's national team and the way he deals with it in the coming years, I think is a factor.
Yeah, no, I agree. I absolutely agree with that. I just think this is a good. They needed to do something different, really. After Greg Berhalter, after all those years, they had a lot of applications from big names manager. I think
Not
a lot
just
of
them,
people,
but Gareth Southgate too.
But
See what I did there?
I don't know if Gareth Southgate was a candidate, but I know that they've had some massive names putting themselves forward for the job, which is great. So it shows that it's appealing. But the World Cup being obviously in the US helps massively for that. But I just think they had to do something different. They did. And now I just hope it works. The fact that Poch had worked with people who are at the top of the federation is also a good thing, I think. Helps. Mark Crocker knows him really well. They know each other well from Southampton. I think they've worked together before. They can trust each other, which is something that maybe he didn't have in Paris, for example. The relationship between him and the people above him was not that great. I think if that relationship is great now between Poch and the people above him, that's also added value.
And again, I think in his case, I think he's a really bright guy.
Yeah, he's smart.
He can be stubborn, but with this period out, some self-evaluation. And this brings us on my next topic. I'm sure that his people pitched him to other clubs. There were big job openings in the summer. And he didn't get them.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there is a bit of a trend.
Yeah.
Where a lot of clubs are saying, I don't value experience as much. I'm going to go with the younger player. So obviously, we mentioned Arteta at Arsenal before. I mean, Fabian Hurtzler, perhaps an extreme example at Brighton. Although Brighton, there's a theme there because before that, obviously, the Zerbi was in a similar boat, and before that, Graham Potter too.
Yeah,
Chris Hughton, not so much, but Bayern company, like we said. It happens that somebody like Jose Mourinho is now in Turkey. I think there's a feeling that clubs look at this and say, look, obviously an Ancelotti or Pep Guardiola is a major value add. But a younger coach will often be even more hardworking, or can be more hardworking, especially if they have a little track record. Because some expos who go into coaching, all of a sudden, I mean, we've heard this from Stevie Nicol many times, right? It is a lot more work to coach a team than to play in the team. It's just more pressure, more work. You're always on,
it's like
right?
a 24/7 job almost, yeah.
Yeah, some people thrive in that. I mean, Arteta, for example, has shown that he can thrive in that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you get somebody who's more motivated to work, to make a name for themselves. You get somebody who is necessarily, I think, more up to date with current methods, less set in his ways because he's had fewer influences.
Yeah.
You get somebody who's cheaper, which I think is really important. Yeah. We don't often talk about the compensation of coaches and stuff like that, although weirdly we will talk about it with players. But I think that's a big part of it as well. And I think you get somebody who's more malleable, who's more pliable.
Absolutely.
Enzo Maresca at Chelsea. Like, I'm not saying he's a yes man, but it's pretty obvious that if I'm Enzo Maresca and I rock up at Chelsea and Chelsea say, this is how we do things. Yeah. These are the directors of football. This is our business plan. Can you work within it? I'll say yes. Somebody like Pochettino or Mourinho.
Yeah. Or Conte. Conte was lucky to get Napoli, but yeah.
Conte's an extreme case. Yeah. Or Jurgen Klopp even, from many of the reports that we've had about, out of Liverpool about why Michael Edwards left and then came back after Klopp was no longer there. They indicate that the manager says, wait, this is my team. I'm the coach. Yeah. I'm the guy who's to face the media afterwards. I want to have more of a say in things, right? Because I work with the players every day, right? I don't know that clubs want somebody like that. And I think they're realizing that this costs us money. This interferes with other parts of the club. It can be a little bit bad for morale. And if it's Pep, and if Pep says, sign me a dog to be Erling Haaland's backup, they'll be like, woof, woof, sure, here you go, Fido. But most clubs aren't going to do that. I mean, he's Pep. He's an outlier.
Yeah. It depends as well on your ownership. There's some owners who want to have that control, that want to be heavy-handed in.
But it's not the owner's control. It's the owner. I think this is the wrong way to think about it. It's the club, the CEO.
Yeah,
together with the owner deciding this is how we're going to spend a lot of money on scouting, a lot of money on analytics, a lot of money on these fancy directors of football who were once at Monaco and Red Bull, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to look at this in the medium and long term. We're going to have commercial considerations.
Yeah.
A manager, I don't care what they say, they always think short term because it's their backside on the line, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, I think it's really interesting. I think we need a bit more time to see if it's really a trend or if at some point some clubs go back to experience. And also
Borussia Dortmund,
winning mentality.
Stuttgart.
Yeah, but
Bayer Leverkusen.
True, but Xabi Alonso has won now. But there was a point where if you don't win, if Kompany doesn't win with Bayern, he's not going to stay at Bayern.
No, and he's easier to fire and he's cheaper to fire.
Yeah, true.
Than somebody you bring in than Tuchel was with the kind of contract
but
he was.
I'm all for younger managers, give them a chance, etc. At the end of the day, if they don't win, it's not going to last. So
I think that's going to be the benchmark. We're not saying it's right or wrong. We're saying that it's happening because this is what a lot of clubs believe.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think new hires at big clubs of managers who have had success and are established and expensive. I can think of Hansi Flick.
Yeah.
Conte.
Yeah. In this summer, Luis Enrique, I guess, the summer before that.
Luis Enrique, Paris Saint-Germain.
But
there's not too many others. I'm sure. Pochettino, obviously, when he came to Chelsea.
Yeah.
But there's not too many others, right?
No, that's true.
So, I think it's fair to speak of a trend here. All right, enough, Poch. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
Okay, let's get this out of the way, Jules. Regular viewers know my thoughts on this, so I'll let you handle it.
We all do.
The Ballon D'Or nominations are out, and for the first time in 21 years, there is no Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi on the 30-man shortlist. Shortlist, which, by the way, exists because in the past we've had morons voting for it who will go and we'll think it's funny. Oh, Phil Jones for Ballon D'Or, and they actually get votes. So
so you've got 30
That's
names.
why you need a 30-man.
You've got.
This is how highly they think of their voters.
Listen, and we know you don't like it.
Oh
we
my
know
God.
you don't like
Absolutely
individual awards. The players love it, and the players
Some players love it.
A lot of them love it and care about it and want to win it and want to be there on that stage, and that's why I like it. It's not us who decide who the 30 players are. By the way, before you send abuse, it is some journalists from France Football and from L'Équipe newspaper. So respected journalists, really, who watch a lot of football. No, it's true.
Plus, they have to nanny the voters because the voters are stupid.
And the Panama voter from last year, who's a journalist from Panama, who got the top 5 of last year's Ballon d'Or in order, the only one to do so. So as a reward, he got to be part of the committee that named those 30 players. I don't think anybody really could argue with that. With the fact that Messi and Cristiano are not there, right? We agree on that. Even if Messi won the Copa America.
Messi wins the Copa America.
He was very
Cristiano
average.
Scores 50-odd goals. But,
he was very average in the Copa America, Messi, right?
And Cristiano played in the Euros as well.
And was very average too.
And scored 2 goals on penalties.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think, I don't have any issue with them not being. It's the end of, it was always going to happen that day anyway.
All right. But you're going to vote, if you had a vote, you would vote for Rodri, right?
I would vote for Kylian Mbappe.
Stop it.
Come on, Kylian. Vamos. Gab, there's also a Coach of the Year award, of course. And the shortlist here is just 6 names.
Yeah, because all those very clever people from L'Équipe France, they couldn't come up with 30 names. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it to 6. So here, let me explain why. Xabi Alonso, who goes undefeated for almost the entire season and leads Bayer Leverkusen to win the Bundesliga. Luis de la Fuente, who wins the Euros with Spain.
Yeah.
Pep Guardiola, who wins the Premier League.
Yeah.
Lionel Scaloni, who wins the Copa America.
Yeah.
Carlo Ancelotti, who wins the Champions League. And Gasperini, who wins the Europa League.
Yeah.
Honestly, these people could just tune into finals of everything and pick it that way. Out of those 6, I'll tell you right now who I would choose. It's Xabi Alonso.
Okay. That's good.
Done. Move on.
Yeah, let's go.
Casemiro is Manchester United's official scapegoat right now after the humiliating defeat to Liverpool. He inherits the mantle from Anthony, from Harry Maguire, from all the scapegoats we've had in the past.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's plenty of reports linking him with Galatasaray. Plenty of reports also suggesting he doesn't really want to go. Should United force him through, do they have enough cover?
I think they need him. I know he was not good against Liverpool in that first half. He gave the ball away a lot, and especially then 2 times that went into Liverpool scoring. So I understand that they need him. They can't have Mason Mount and Kobe Mainu and Ugarte
And Eriksen.
and Eriksen.
So you have a guy who has
Collier.
You have a guy with heart problems, right, who's out of contract and who's 100 years old and doesn't really run. You have Kobe Mainu, who's 19.
Yeah.
You have Ugarte, who's just arrived, and you have Mason Mount, who's always injured.
Yeah.
This would be your
no,
four.
But they can't, and
you
United won't let him go. They won't let him go.
One thing that really bugged me is there were some people saying Casemiro doesn't have the legs for the Premier League, blah blah blah, right? And they said this last season, and fine, fair enough, right? The guy loses the ball twice, blamed for both goals. Ten Hag makes sure he knows that we're blaming him because he takes him off.
Yeah.
It's not. He didn't make those mistakes because he doesn't have legs. He made those mistakes
because
either he wasn't alert or wasn't as good on the ball as people think.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet, that's what I read. Criticism of him, he doesn't have the legs. Come on, man.
Yeah. Mats Hummels is back, baby. He signs for Roma as a free agent. He won't be lacking motivation, Gab, will he?
No, he won't. I think he's got a few things to get off his chest. I think he's burned a few bridges. I'm excited now. Do I love the fact that like Hummels, Mancini, and Dika, you kind of have like a lot of physicality back there? It's not necessarily bad. Maybe not so much in terms of legs, apart from Ndika when fit. But I like this. I think he knows what he's going into, knows the leadership. Turned down West Ham reportedly, and so on. And I think it's going to be a fun
Mosso is coming as well, so they've got a few centre. You said the other day that they were short in centre backs. So since then, Smalling is gone, but Mosso has arrived. Maybe even Manolas. They talk about Manolas coming back. I'm not sure about Manolas coming back.
Much as I love the Greek god Kostas Manolas, who of course, Champions League hero of all time.
Yeah.
But still, no. Now, I spent a chunk of this past summer in the south of France on the Côte d'Azur.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the local liqueur pastis.
Yes.
They're our new official. No, they're not. Not an official sponsor. Not yet. Anyway, they're very proud of their pastis down there.
Yeah.
Especially in Marseille, where it's from.
Yeah.
But now the biggest pastis brand, Pernod Ricard, I believe.
Yeah.
Even though I like Saint-Quentin, an alternative brand.
Yeah.
Anyway, they've gotten themselves in some trouble with the locals.
That's right, Gab, because it was announced this week that Pernod Ricard, as you said, very famous.
I think they actually invented the pastis, or were the first.
Yeah, I think so. Paul Ricard was born in Marseille in 1920 or something.
Not
like
to
that.
be confused, and his nephew Hamilton Ricard went on to play for Derby. Yeah, but that's another story.
Ricard have agreed a deal with PSG to become their sponsor, which, as you can imagine, in Marseille, one of their own brand, because it's really, like you said, is heavily considered as the local brand. There, it's like. It would if you think Pastis and Ricard, you think Marseille straight away. So now the fact that they are giving money to PSG, to the arch rival, is beyond Marseille.
It would be like back in the day if Newcastle Brown Ale had sponsored Sunderland.
Yeah, exactly.
Possibly if Boddington's had sponsored Liverpool.
Not sure what Boddington is, but
it's this disgusting type of beer that they have up north.
Okay, yeah, exactly like that. So you can just imagine the controversy and the chaos that has created.
This is just Paris, because I can't imagine the sponsorship is that big. This is Paris Saint-Germain trolling Marseille.
I don't know if it is. There will be some money involved. PSG don't do any deals for not much money nowadays anyway. But yeah, I find it funny. I like it. Norway's anti-doping agency sent a list of players to be tested while with the national team, as often. But Gab, I guess the guys who made that list aren't football fans.
No, they're not. They also aren't particularly intelligent people. It also sheds light. So I think they literally went on the internet because two of the players that they asked for, in addition to Bob and Holland and others, one is somebody named, and I hope I'm getting this right, Jörgen Juve, who he played in the 1930s and he died in 1983.
Right.
The other one is even worse. It's Einar Gundersen, who played in the 1910s and 1920s. And who died in 1962.
They don't have another Goodinson now? No, you sure it's not another one?
No,
okay.
Not who plays for the national team.
Right.
So it seems that I think they went on the Wikipedia page. No, I'm not kidding. And they saw list of most appearances or most goals or whatever. And they just chose they got it confused with the squad list. And they just chose names off of that. I don't know. They're from Norway. They don't like football. I'm assuming they're cross-country skiers or maybe ski jumpers.
Yeah.
Or maybe just dorks. I don't know.
Runners. The Norwegian are good at running now.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Jan Åge Fjørtoft, who is also among the leading scorers in the history of the Norwegian national team.
Imagine if you get tested, though, what would come out of that?
Yeah. I don't know.
No, just don't go there.
But this is really embarrassing. It also calls to mind another thing. are you just really picking names off a list, or are you randomizing? Because I thought you're supposed to randomize.
You just pick, usually. Yeah.
Rather than pick people, let alone dead people. All right, Jules, we're not done. We have more quick hits.
Yes.
Next Wednesday, September 11th, is the date that Kylian Mbappe is expected to testify before the French League in his dispute with Paris Saint-Germain over the 55 million euros that he believes the club owe him. It's that famous verbal agreement, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I genuinely thought this is bad publicity for both. I think they both look stupid in this.
Yeah, you're right. It could have been avoided, I think.
I would have thought they'd have a deal done by now, but they're both pushing.
No, and I think there could be even more after that, because I think they could even go to FIFA and stuff like that. We know that Kylian's lawyers have gone to FIFA already. We will see what the league says. We don't know if Mbappe will be there physically or not, or just be represented by his lawyers. 55 million euros. He could have asked for even more than that, because I think he went a bit lower than really what they owe him. PSG, as you said, just saying like, listen, we had an agreement, we agreed to this, we shook hands, nothing in writing, nothing was written, nothing in writing, but we agreed to this. And now he's kind of coming back on his agreement from before and on his words, which Kylian says, well, you didn't treat me well between February and the end of the season.
Well, they didn't pay his salary for some months.
Yeah.
But surely, whatever his agreement is, I mean, leaving aside the bonus, this is the part I don't understand. His salary is not a verbal agreement. No. His salary is real.
Yeah.
He's got a contract. Yeah. Lawyers.
That's why I think PSG are going to lose this. Vinicius Jr. has been harshly criticized by the mayor of Madrid and others for suggesting in an interview with CNN that if Spain, who are set to co-host the World Cup in 2030, that if Spain doesn't involve in terms of racism and fight against racism, then the World Cup will have to change the location.
Yeah, I think this is where we in the media have done a really bad job, because context matters. So Vinicius sat down with CNN with her colleague Darren Lewis. He gave a long interview. He did say that if the situation doesn't evolve, then the World Cup needs to be moved from 2030. But he also said a ton of other stuff. He talked about how the situation had improved. He talked about how much he loves it in Madrid and in Spain. He talked about how the majority of people in Spain are not racist. He talked about that, there's other people who, and this is what I've always believed, because I don't think you can turn somebody not racist in their mind, but you can influence their actions. And so he says there's cameras around, there's less abuse. He talked about how important it was when those 3 guys went to prison and so on. So he's not just a guy sitting there trolling Spain.
Yeah.
He's expressing his view, fine. But he's made it very, very clear that he's got a deep relationship. And so for the mayor of Madrid, I don't know if you watched the whole thing. I invite you all. It's out there.
Available everywhere. Yeah.
Just watch it, make up your own mind. But, for him now to demand apologies and whatever, get the context first. Some good news for Chelsea, Jules. The Premier League have approved Chelsea's sale of 2 Stamford Bridge hotels to Blueco, which of course is the company controlled by the club's owners, Todd Bowley and Clearlake. Jules, this means they're more likely to avoid breaching profit and sustainability rules. Are you okay with that, or does it seem a bit dubious?
Well, one, it's great news for the club, obviously, and for their finances. So if you look at the price that they paid for the hotels and the price of property in the area, I think it's probably the right value. So it's
£76.5 million. It's not. It doesn't feel like
you've got 1-bedroom flat in that area that's sold for 2.5 million. So this is the numbers and the figures don't shock me.
Right.
If they had sold it for 250 million, we could have said, listen, it's not worth that. You've gone too far. So the price, no problem. It's still the fact that you're selling to you basically, and that's where I find that a little bit dubious.
Yeah, they did get individual valuations, but it does give you an advantage, obviously, later on in what you can do in the terms. If they somehow lease things to Chelsea, do they do it at market value or whatever else? I think what's really interesting is UEFA does not allow this sort of transaction. So this doesn't solve any issues they may have with UEFA's profit sustainability rules, and that will come into play later.
Victor Osimhen has joined Galatasaray on loan, Gab. You know what this means, don't you?
It means the best is yet to come. I am so happy he can play football again. Obviously, the market in Turkey is still open. We won't get to see, we'll see Galatasaray in the Europa League.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the best option since everybody's being
It
so
was the only
pig-headed
option, to be fair.
at this stage. Napoli are also extending, they've given themselves a club option as part of the deal to extend it to this deal to 2027, which I think makes sense. It preserves market value. If he scores 50 goals and somebody, wants to offer 150 million for him, Napoli aren't over a barrel. Or if Conte upsets everybody and he's run out of town, who knows? Maybe he can come back.
That's very true.
So I think it's a good solution. Is it the optimal solution? No, not at all. It's a good solution for Galatasaray, though, because they covers wages, which are big for a year. Optimal solution would have been he got his move, or maybe some might say optimal solution is Conte isn't so pig-headed and works with Osimhen, but that's another issue. So, I think this is good if you like football and you like seeing really, really good football.
And the reception he got from, as you would expect, because this is a deal that should have never happened in the first place, really. Osimhen is, no offense to Galatasaray and the Turkish league, but at 25 years old, he's too good for that level. So for him to sign there, and the fans, I think, showed him how much they love that move.
And he's got his wish to stay in Europe because, of course, Galatasaray play on the European side of the Bosporus.
They do indeed.
Nico Jackson has extended his contract at Chelsea by another 2 years to 2033. Jules, you understand this?
I'm just a bit disappointed that it's not 2035. Easily they could have given him even 2 more years to that. I don't know what to say anymore. I'm sure it makes sense financially for them. Otherwise, they would not do it. For him, probably because he got a pay rise, I would suspect.
I think it's a bit like the Cole Palmer deal.
Yeah, it's exactly
they haven't
the same.
confirmed this, but my understanding is there's something written into the contract where if you hit certain benchmarks, then your deal automatically gets extended and you automatically get a raise.
Yeah.
I think that's all that happened. There's no need to make fun of Nico Jackson.
No.
For better or worse, from Chelsea's perspective, he's been their starter for 15 months.
Yeah,
he's generally been fit, unless when he's been suspended for being stupid and getting stupid yellow cards. He's going to get better.
Yeah. Leicester City have won their case against the Premier League and won't face sanction for violating PSR. Going back to PSR, Gab, some things that this will have an impact on the City case and the 115 charges.
So it has an impact in general because it calls into question lawyers and how powerful the Premier League is when they go to independent commissions. But beyond that, this is completely different. Leicester basically argued a loophole. Leicester argued that when the charges were filed, they were no longer a Premier League club, and so they can't be punished. Leicester clearly violated the spirit of the law. I don't think there's any doubt there.
We said that wage bill was the 16th highest in Europe.
It's ridiculous.
Last season.
But hey, lawyers, right? This is what you do. Nick DeMarco, you're a genius. You can sleep at night, maybe, but I think I know where you're going after you leave this world. Mohamed Simakan has left Leipzig for where else? Al Nassr for a 45 million euro fee. Jules, this is a different profile of player from the one that usually moves to Saudi because people think, he was supposed to be really, really, really good. And he is very good.
And he is very good. I think there was a time where he was really close to the French national team. And at 24 years old, I am a bit surprised. I won't lie that he's going there. It's a great move from Leipzig because I think they got him for 10 million from Strasbourg at the time, which is an incredible profit then made by them. There's still time for him to come back. It doesn't mean that he will stay in Saudi Arabia for the next 10 years and finish his career there. But in terms of ambition, not sure exactly
he gets to
what
play with Cristiano Ronaldo.
That's
he
true.
goes out there, makes some money. True. Why not?
Yeah, okay. Newcastle United director of football, or new director of football, Paul Mitchell, says that they're not worried about losing Eddie Howe if he takes the England job, if that becomes available, possible for him, and that the club transfer strategy before his arrival, was not fit for purpose. Hello, Dan Ashworth. I bet you like this one.
Okay, so he said, Paul Mitchell said a lot. First of all, I love the fact that it's not just him, it was Monchi we're going to get to.
Yeah, it's good.
I think it's important that these people, now since so much power is taken away from managers in terms of recruitment, and because this and PSR is such an important part of the game today, it's important, I think, that these people speak out and face the media and provide another messaging from the club's perspective. Okay, he's not fussed about Eddie Howe taking the England job. Yeah, okay.
Even for Eddie Howe, that's not great to him.
It's not great, but you know what? If his attitude is the right one, like, you're not here, we get somebody else.
Yeah,
I know.
I know.
It's not like the club collapses. None of these people, Sir Alex Ferguson.
But it's almost if he's like, please take that England job, Eddie, please.
The not fit for purpose, I don't know if he meant for that to slip out. Obviously, he feels that way. He felt that, maybe there wasn't as much of a coherent strategy. Maybe it's because, Ashworth shared some of the power with Eddie Howe in a way that maybe he's hoping not to. I don't know, but it's good to hear people speak freely.
Yeah.
Steven Bergwijn is off to Saudi Arabia too, joining Al Ittihad for 25 million, where he can send crosses into an imaginary Karim Benzema. Jules, your buddy Ronald Koeman had something to say about this.
Not happy at all, the Dutch guy. Not happy with Bergwijn, saying that this is it. This is the end of his international career. Will never play certainly under him for the Dutch anymore. At his age, he's too young to go there. It's a ridiculous choice. Somebody said to him, did he call you? So I think the question from the journalist to Koeman was, did he call you to explain to you? Koeman said, no, I didn't get a call. And the guy said that maybe you could have called him. And Koeman said, like, I don't call any players. Okay, the Dutch guy. Thank you very much.
How funny is it going to be when Gajardo decides, right, screw this, I'm out of here, and Ronald Koeman, after getting sacked by Holland, goes and joins Al Ittihad.
So Gardo has already been sacked. It's Laurent Blanc, the head coach of Al Ittihad now. So I'm not sure if Laurent Blanc...
only had 3 of them in the last 9 months.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah, Laurent Blanc and his big head do not strike me as sort of denizens of longevity.
No, that's very true. And for Bergwijn, we said it for Simakan. It's a bit similar. He's 26 or something. I mean,
but Simakan was super highly rated. Bergwijn is okay.
True, but Bergwijn could have still found a decent European club, you know.
It's good business for Ajax.
Yeah, really good. More boring Premier League legal stuff, Gab, for you. They sent Everton, that's the Premier League, a £4.9 million legal bill after their PSR punishment last year. But the club appealed, and now they've won an important victory.
They have. So the way it works is the Premier League investigate you, and obviously they need to hire armies of lawyers to do this.
Yeah.
And lawyers, of course, are grubby and like money, so they charge a lot of money, and plus all these rules are so complex, right? So it gets really expensive. And I guess because Everton lost their case and got the points penalty, they had to pay the Premier League's legal costs. When Everton got the invoice, they're like, "What? 4.9 million? Where did you find these guys?" Right? So they appealed. They went to another independent commission, another bunch of lawyers looking at this, and says like, "Oh no, this is far too much money that the Premier League spent on this. Everton, you're only on the hook for 1.3 million. Premier League, you have to pay the other 4.9 million." I think where this becomes perhaps a little bit relevant to the City case is we know that both sides are way lawyered up. Right?
Yeah, massively.
So it's massively, massively expensive.
Yeah.
Could we get to a point that, I don't think we will, but some people have suggested there are 20 Premier League clubs. When we talk about the Premier League has to pay, it's not the Premier League paying, it's the 20 Premier League clubs.
Yeah.
Some other clubs, if I'm Brentford, I'm like, you know what? These 115 charges, long time ago, why do I have to pay 1/20th?
They were not even in the Premier League when all.
I wasn't in the Premier League when it happened. Blah blah blah. You know, so I don't think it's going to get to that.
No,
but it does. It is another bloody nose, I think, for the Premier League.
Definitely,
especially after the Leicester case. Brighton have been busy. They picked up Ferdi Kardoglu from Fenerbahce.
Oh, yes.
Now Diego Gomez from Inter Miami. He's going to join in January for a fee of around $13 million. What do you make of this? Messi, I think, will miss him. And is it significant that MLS is once again selling to the Premier League?
I love the 2 signings. Ferdi, we saw him at the Euros, best left back of the competition with Cucurella.
I'm sure Mourinho is happy with this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for somebody...
They're stealing his players from him already.
He's playing for him. But it's a 25 million euro deal. It's massive. Even for a club like Fenerbahce, it's massive. Diego Gomez, I probably love that even more because he's 26. And I think he's ready to make that move from MLS, where he's been very, very good with Messi and Inter Miami.
He's going to do the running around in midfield for Inter Miami with the old guys up front.
I think from a Brighton point of view, at that price, it's an absolute bargain for someone like Diego Gomez. So I love that. I love what Brighton have done. For me, they've won the transfer window, all leagues together. They spend a lot. They spend by far the most, as we will see in the next question. But I love what they've done, and they obviously had all that money from the McAllister transfer to the Caicedo transfer to all of that. So well done for them to spending in that way. And the fact that European clubs in general and Premier League clubs look into MLS again, remember the Almiron deal, for example, at the time, is very good, I think. And it shows that MLS is working well by signing a Thiago Almada young, a Diego Gomez young, for example, or bringing those players in. Sometimes bringing players from Europe who do well in MLS and then go back to Europe. That happens too. I think this is really
push
good.
back a tiny bit on that because there's 30 odd teams in MLS, right? And you mentioned Almiron. Other than Ricardo Pepi, who didn't quite work out.
Yeah, didn't work out.
That seems to be the last kind of big deal from MLS to Europe. So I do wonder.
Yeah, but there's been it doesn't have to be a massive deal to a big Premier League club. Like books are
Yes, Tanner Chessman went to Venezia. Okay, good.
No, but no, see what I mean? It's just I think there's before it used to never happen. So I think it's better than before, that's for sure. And going back to Brighton, Gab, because you wrote a very, very good piece online on the ESPN website about the transfer window and everything, and that transfer spending is way, way down in the Premier League, especially
40%.
compared to before. But one club, and that's Brighton, as we mentioned, are bucking that trend with a monster net spend of £160 million, even over than that, more than anybody else. Do they know something that nobody else does, or they just had that war chest, as we mentioned, from all the past transfer out that they made?
So there's different factors. One is they do have a war chest because they've spent very well in the past.
Yeah.
Another thing is Brighton aren't owned by Clear Lake or even Fenway. It's not a fund. It's not a bunch of rich people who get together. They're owned by one guy, Tony Bloom. This particular guy happens to be a massive Brighton fan from birth.
I
think
from
it's
generations.
family has ties to the club. So in the end, if he gets this wrong, if Brighton lose money, it's his backside of the line. On top of that, there's two other big factors here which set Brighton apart from other clubs. One is Tony Bloom is extremely intelligent, extremely smart, and has extremely smart people working for him. I think to a degree that puts him beyond 90% of Premier League owners.
Yeah, that's true.
And the other thing is he's a professional gambler. This is how he made his money.
Yeah.
He's the person, and a professional poker player too. Was before, I know he still plays professionally, but he's the guy who assesses risk and says, okay, high risk, high reward. So we've spent a ton of money, but we can get a really high reward. He obviously sees things I don't, because when I look at this, I'm like, all right, Jorginho, Rutter, meh. Minte got everybody excited, I guess so. I don't know how he got it.
They're young players with a lot of potential.
Weaver, Gruda.
Gruda was amazing in Bundesliga last season for his age. At his age,
I don't know.
The next big thing, even Tor Christian says it.
Oh, well, hey, if he says so, yeah.
Matt O'Reilly with Celtic has been outstanding too.
I don't watch Celtic, so I can't tell you about him.
That's why I'm here to tell you.
I
think he's great.
But I think he's the kind of guy who says, we want this player. In years past, I think what he probably thought too was in years past, we were able to get players under the radar, right? Because we would scout Moises Caicedo when nobody else knew who he was looking there, right? Now, the minute we move for a player, other clubs are like, ooh, Brighton like him, he might be good, right? So they send armies of scouts and they take players that Brighton might have wanted to sign.
But what I like is they went from signing McAllister for, I don't know, a few millions, or Caicedo for 3 million, to spending, Rutter 40 million, that was his release clause. I give you that. That's a bit high, maybe, despite all the talent that he has and the potential. But they spend 25, 30, 40.
But this is the thing. But they've had to do that because in this summer, because the climate, because it's down, because nobody wants to spend money, because owners are tired of financing losses year after year, which is another big thing in my piece. It's shocking. I mean, by the way, I have to give credit to Swiss Ramble. I used all his information to do this. But people don't realize how the Premier League business model. And so he's saying, this summer, let's just move quickly. Let's not get outbid.
Yeah.
We have the luxury to do that. I will take on the risk.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's done that. France and Italy play in the Nations League Friday. I have a really bad feeling about this, Jules.
No, don't say
Am
that.
I right to think we're on our way to a spanking?
I don't know. It could happen at the Parc des Princes on Friday night. It might not either, with Spalletti's back three, and Calafiori and Bastoni are there, and Sandro Tonali should start too.
Oh, yes, he's played a lot of Sandro Tonali, who has started as many professional football games as you have, Jules, in the past 10 and a half months.
That's true.
Starting against the French midfield, yes.
But he won't play the whole game. I'm just saying that I want to see this Italy team after that disastrous defeat against Switzerland at the Euros. For the French, we want to see Barcola. We hope he starts. We want to see Michael Olise, who might not start but will come on at some point too. So, yeah, I'm excited by this game. Meanwhile, Joshua Kimmich has been named the new Germany captain for their game against Hungary on Saturday. That's the right call, right?
I did use this. It's no call. I mean, Julian Nagelsmann is still the Germany manager, right?
Yeah.
Joshua Kimmich is his guy. I think he should be everybody's guy. It seems that everybody, except for the praying mantis insect-like Thomas Tuchel, didn't like him. It's obvious. He's your present and your future. He's got enough experience. He can handle that. Better that than one of the old guys hanging around. Yeah, obvious choice. More Nations League, but not at the top flight because, of course, they got relegated. England faced, it's funny, when all those things after Gareth Southgate stuff, nobody made a big deal of the relegation. I know you're not supposed to care about the Nations League, but dude, you went down, right? Okay.
Yeah, in the B League.
Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, Ollie Watkins have all pulled out because they're traitors who don't love their country. Oh, just kidding. They all pulled out. I'm assuming they're injured.
Yeah,
and they're definitely not putting their club form ahead of their national team form.
Definitely not.
But Angel Gomes is there.
Oh.
And Jules, we touched upon him a tiny bit on Monday, but again, I suspect many will have forgotten about him and maybe not realize that he's the same little fella who we saw running around for Manchester United when he was, what, 18?
Right. Or for England under 21s, if you've watched that, because he was obviously one of Lee Carsley, who's now the interim head coach for England, but previously to that with the young team, with the younger teams. Who's a big fan of Angel Gomes, who I completely understand why, because he, for me, certainly, who now I've been lucky to watch him play a lot in France for Lille since he joined the club, is one of the most intelligent footballers that I've ever seen. I don't know him personally, I've never met him, but from what I see on the pitch and the people who play with him have told me, he's just the football IQ is out of this world. And I guess in the modern age now, where people like those tall number 6 who can do everything from Rice to Rodri, those kind of guys, to have Angel Gomes still bossing games from midfield, being like 3'5", but just simply because he's got this incredible brain as a footballer, is just wonderful. So I'm really, really happy that he's there. Livramento is also as his first call-up, I think. Morgan Gibbs-White, and there's a fourth one that I can't really remember who it is, but it's good that Lee Carsley, who, by the way, is a former Irish international,
yes,
Republic of Ireland, and now he's going to coach England against Ireland too for his first game as an interim head coach. It's really good, and I'm glad that he went a little bit outside of the box to pick some of these players for his squad.
One thing about Lee Carsley is I remember him because I'm older. I remember him as a footballer for Derby County.
Did he play for Everton, or I made that up? No, I made that up. Maybe. Who did he
I think
play
he
for?
looked like he may have played for Everton too because he looked like Thomas Grafson.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
no,
maybe.
I think he did. And like balls, running around, running into people, tackles, very little technical
Old school,
ability.
yeah.
And yet he's a super smart guy.
Yeah.
He didn't just work. He's not just some FA Schlemiel. He worked for Brentford, and they have pretty high standards there in terms of people they actually employ.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can be a national team coach. I don't know if he has the charisma or whatever. But just because you're one way as a player does not mean that you're going to be that way
That's
as a
very
coach.
true. That's very cool. Iker Muniain won the Copa del Rey with Athletic Club de Bilbao last year as a club legend as well. But now he's on his way to San Lorenzo in Argentina. Gab is only 31. You love this type of stories.
I do. It's reminiscent when Daniele De Rossi, the angel of death, moved to Boca Juniors. He was a big part player for Athletic Bilbao, more of like a super sub. He's had injuries over the years. I remember when he made his debut, I think he was 16.
Yeah, it was amazing.
People were like, oh, look, the Basque Messi. Because what? Because he's short and dribbles. I like it. San Lorenzo, one of the great historic clubs in Argentine football. And he's saying, you know what? I want to have an experience. And I think with him is also, I don't know if he said it, but I'm imagining he would have. When you're Basque,
He would have never played for another Spanish club, for sure.
I think, any other club that's likely to face it, right? And good luck to him. I hope he makes it work out there. And and I love this thing. You're doing it for the love of football, and in the same way that he stayed at Athletic Bilbao his entire career for the love of football. Because I'll tell you what, like those guys do not pay a lot of money. So I don't know. I'm really excited to see what he can do. I hope he stays fit. Chelsea weren't able to sell David Washington to Strasbourg.
Nope.
But they did sell a former Strasbourg player.
Yeah.
They're on loan, Angelo, to El Nasser for 21 million.
That is right. 21 million for Angelo, who I think had 4 assists for Strasbourg last season when he was loaned out there by Chelsea in 20-odd games in the Premier League. He didn't play much the second half of the season. Has never played for Chelsea, and yet Chelsea has made a 5 million euros profit already on his transfer. They bought him for 16 from Brazil. They sold him for 21 after he never played for them.
Even more than
Even
that.
more with
If you count
amortization.
our friend, our amortization.
Exactly.
It's like 7, 8
so
million.
I find that incredible. Even for Al Nasser, how would you commit that money? Angelo is not a bad player. I saw him play last season in France. He was okay. But he's not a 21 million euro player.
So-
no way.
I two considerations here. One, I'm going to think ill because that's part of our job. Remember, we were all wondering about the Conor Gallagher, Joao Felix,
Yeah.
Uncle George. I have a feeling this is all within
this
that same
Okay.
that same sphere here.
Right.
Because I think Uncle George is an important client at Al Nassr.
Yeah, very much so.
And whatever. But I think beyond that, I do wonder, right? This guy was a pretty highly rated winger when he was, I know,
Yeah.
And he's only 19. I don't know if there's a buyback or anything like that in here. But what happens if he starts tearing it up there? Like, do you just kind of write it off and say, well, look, it was still successful for us because we got 8 million? Do you then come back and feel stupid because you let him go? I mean,
yeah, I don't know. But there's a reason why they would not just loan him out to another European club, including Strasbourg. I mean, he couldn't have gone to Strasbourg because they've loaned out too many players to Strasbourg and they can't do anymore. But there was, if you sell him for that amount, it's because, well, for any amount, it's because you don't believe in him anymore and you don't think that he can get much better than
well,
what he
you
is.
need to
even
raise
at
money
19.
for PSR purposes.
Maybe
That's the other
Maybe
reason you
too.
would do it. I mean, look,
Maybe
it's
too.
always a gamble. And there is a history at Chelsea from
Yeah.
Eddie Nketiah, and this is not something you can blame Bowling clearly for, but Eddie Nketiah, Declan Rice, there's a whole bunch of
Yeah, for sure.
Dominic Solanke, a whole bunch of Chelsea youth products who've then been successful elsewhere.
Yeah. Monchi faced the press and talked about Aston Villa's summer transfer activity and PSR, Gab. I bet you like when sporting directors speak out like this.
I told you I loved it. There's a piece in The Athletic actually where it was almost like verbatim what he and the other guy whose name I can never remember, Ildeguy, is that his name?
Yeah.
And they talked about why they did what they did and how they saw things. And I think you as a club doing this and having him do it, not the manager,
Yeah.
not only just because, let's face it, listening to Unai Emery speak is not pleasant for some of us, but it shouldn't be Unai Emery talking about it. Unai Emery can talk about them, how they fit into a game and whatever. But if you talk about the broader strategy, the impact of profit sustainability rules, it's this. He said something I don't fully agree with. He says that, the rules are contradictory because, you have to have 4 homegrown players in UEFA competitions. But at the same time, the way the accounting rules are is obviously the ones you're most likely to sell, as they did with Amari Kellyman and whatnot, are your homegrown players, right?
Yeah.
So how does that work out? And he talked about how also the squad cost ratio rules, where you can't spend more than 90% of your revenue going down to 70% on players, agent fees, and transfer fees. That goes against PSR because it could be contradictory. Like he said all these things, right? Which fair enough. But we got to hear from him.
Yeah.
I don't understand why more people don't do this rather than just
That's
dumping
fair.
everything on the manager. Managers have other stuff to do.
Yeah.
More important stuff. Danilo Pereira leaves Paris Saint-Germain and moves to El Ittihad for $5 million. I know he's 32, but that doesn't sound like a lot of money for Portugal international
no.
with 74 caps. He started. I thought he started fewer games. 27 games he started for Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, he played a lot of centre back. I mean, he's a centre back now, really. Even when
Can't
he's
play
with
central
Portugal.
midfield anymore.
Yeah, not really, I think. And great servant to the club, great in the dressing room because he just a lovely guy that everybody loves. They just needed a bit of money and save his wages. Not that he was on massive money, but they could not find a club for Skriniar, for example, but they could find a club for him. So he was the one to go. I would have loved him to stay because, again, I think a lot of people at the club, not just even players or technical staff, there's a lot of people who love Danilo Pereira, and it's hard not to love him anyway. So wish him good luck. But he gave some good times in Paris.
You said he wasn't on big money. He must have been on decent money because, frankly, for
Yeah.
5 million euros, I know we've talked about how teams in the Premier League and whatever are spending less and they're moving away from veteran players. But the wealth of experience and leadership that he brings, unlike a newly promoted team in the Premier League or even a mid-table side, surely that could have been important. Like,
Yeah,
surely
it
he
could
would have
have
made a
been.
lot of teams in the Premier League better.
Yeah, I think he wanted to go back to Portugal maybe, and there was a long time where Porto were in for him, and in the end didn't work out. So he's another one at Al Ittihad. Trent Alexander-Arnold is not the only high-profile right back who becomes a free agent in June. Let's talk about Denzel Dumfries.
Yeah, so Inter have basically been dealing with him and his agent for a long time. This isn't the kind of thing where Dumfries comes out and says, like, as you know, and I'm in my last year at the club, and they haven't spoken to me. No. They have talked to him a lot. They're offering him 4 million euros net, which, works out to, I don't know, something on the order of 140,000 pounds a week with bonuses and whatever, if you like to think. I think Inter are really holding the line on this 4 million euros net, and I think it's the right thing to do. He's a good player. He goes up and down. Yeah. He does not have the upside that Trent Alexander-Arnold does. I don't think that should be the benchmark. It's a wingback in a system that is very punishing for players. There's no reason to go higher than that, if as I see it. So well done Inter for not being strung along at this stage. Jules, time to drop in on our buddy John Texter.
JT.
Lyon have picked up Jordan Veretout, who was on the naughty step at Marseille. He was one of several players who the club said, we don't want you anymore.
Yeah.
They only got him for 4 million euros, which I know he's a bit older, but he's a good passer. Now, two things are odd to me. One is that Lyon were reportedly being threatened by the DNCG and stuff for overspending and blah, blah, blah. And then they just went spent anyway, channeling his inner Todd Bowley. The other is that the deal happened outside the transfer window. And do they really call it the Joker?
Yeah. So you're allowed.
Le Joker?
So you're allowed in France to sign a Joker a season. Usually, for example, if your two goalkeepers are injured, long-term injury, then you're allowed to bring in another goalkeeper, or same with defenders. For example,
this is outside the transfer window, but you have to bring somebody in from another French club.
That's it. You can't go abroad, so it has to be from your own league, basically, which they've done with Veretout.
Why would you spend your Joker at the beginning of September? There's two things. Sorry, JT, help me out here, right? One is, why spend it now at the beginning of September when your goalkeepers go bungee jumping and the cord breaks? What do you do then? And secondly, why didn't they do this last week before the window closed? They wouldn't have to spend their Joker.
Because they realized after the third game of the season against Strasbourg that they won on Friday night 4-3.
And a big comeback.
Massive comeback, as we mentioned on Monday's show. In midfield, there was just a problem. They were outplayed by Rennes in the first game. They were outplayed in the second game. The lack of intensity that they had.
Lost every game to that point.
Two defeats in the first two, and then that miraculous win against Strasbourg, and they needed somebody who would work harder in midfield, who can bring that intensity. They think Veretout is the guy. He's 31 years old. I don't know if he's the answer, really. We will see. But it's interesting because not that long ago, John Texter and Mathieu Louis-Jean, who's the head of recruitment, were the players have to be under the age of 20, a bit like what a lot of clubs do now. And now they sign Wilfried Zaha, albeit on loan, I know, but still over the age of 30. Veretout over the age of 30. Lacazette, who was supposed to leave, is still there at 33 years old. So it's not really anymore this young upcoming team. So we'll see what PSG Stonewise will do with that squad. But I'm just glad for Veretout because he wanted to leave. He could not leave before. His wife got a lot of social media abuse. So did he. It was not nice what the Marseille fans did with him. So I'm glad he left.
Why was the theyre be so down on Veretout?
Don't know. Never liked him. Yeah. Luis Suarez has announced he's retiring from international football. Gab. I mean, incredible career really, with highs and lows.
And biting. Look, he's the Uruguay's all-time leading goal scorer. He's 37. He's very honest. He says, I'm not going to be here for the World Cup in 2026. And I think this is how you go out. And now you can concentrate on your club football, Inter Miami.
Yeah.
I like it when people have the humility to realize what they can no longer do.
I agree.
And look, in terms of the great Luis Suarez career retrospective, let's do it when he retires. FIFA have unveiled the 2025 World Cup logo
Oh.
and audio signature.
And the music, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the audio signature.
Okay, sorry. Okay, audio signature.
Which is not very original because apparently it's the song "Freed from Desire."
Right. Okay.
know.
Gala.
Who,
Gala,
by the
yeah.
way, is from?
I don't know, Sweden, Norway, Italy.
Yes, obviously,
She's Italian.
of course.
I don't know. I saw her at the Olympics because she had this revival at the Olympics. Not just the crowd singing and the athletes singing, but she was also before the men's final and the women's final at the Parc des Princes on the pitch singing bare feet, clearly loving the vibe and loving the buzz. So, I mean, it's just a bit more checks for her and a bit more money.
I guess so. I do wonder a little bit. It's a World Cup in the U.S. Maybe you could have found a local artist. I mean, there are some, right?
Yeah, pretty good ones.
So to me, I don't really care. It's a great song. It's fun to hear in the stadium, whatever. I do think it's a little bit played out. I think. It's like nearly 10 years old. So,
yeah, more than that even, I think. No, I mean, Will Griggs, 2016. That's how this song came back into the kind of like.
Exactly.
So
well done.
And the logo is like this weird kind of clouds, or like a poppy a bit.
If you're watching
Or
us
like a
on
fake
YouTube
Gucci,
or
fake
on
Gucci.
television, the logo's up on the screen.
Yeah.
Should you describe this as
A fake
what we're seeing
Gucci.
as fake
Yeah,
Gucci?
it's the G that is not completely finished. Or like a gold poppy. I mean, they have different colors.
It's a G for Johnny, yeah?
Yeah, I guess. This is very much Johnny Baby. We know, by the way, 30 of the 32 clubs that will take part, if it happens, if the TV rights get sold, etc., etc. The last two spots will be for Copa Libertadores winner, and
Which
then the
makes
other
sense.
one makes sense. We're not really sure exactly, but I will put a bit of money on Inter Miami and Leo Messi somehow making it.
They can introduce the Joker, like the French league. Le Joker
Yeah.
for Inter Miami.
Gab, who's Brad Young, and why are we talking about him?
We're talking about him because it's not just big name footballers
Yeah.
who go to Saudi for a lot of money. This guy, because guess what? Not all Saudi clubs are swimming in cash. This guy, he's 21 years old. He played for TNS, which used to be Total Network Solutions, I believe,
Yeah.
is now the New Saints, which is a Welsh team. He was a top scorer in the Welsh league last year. You should know that because you're part Welsh.
And you know what? TNS have qualified for the first time ever for the Conference League.
No, I think they were in the Conference League last year and he scored 3 goals, I believe. Or
In the
maybe they did this year.
qualifiers, no? Yeah.
All right, whatever. I don't know that part.
The qualifiers.
But what I do know is that it's £190,000 is his transfer fee, which is probably big money for Al Oroba. And it's a great story because he's 21 now, former Villa youth player. He was stabbed in an incident when he was 17 years old, nearly died. And, obviously now can keep playing, scores goals in Europe. Now he's going to score goals in Saudi. What an adventure for him.
Amazing.